I get it. You all really liked this truck. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Flip That Truck. This is the SR5 Toyota that I got from Matt at the Scale Builders Guild. In the last video, I unboxed it, kind of went over its situation or current status, exactly everything that was as you guys saw me unbox it. Since then, I've been in that mad preparation stage for Scale Nationals, which the trucks are right there. And now with that being postponed, I needed something to work on, take my mind off of that. So this truck was the best first project for that, I think. So I got to work and got this thing finished up. Now what I did to get it finished was a number of little projects here and there, nothing major though. This truck didn't need much other than just some actual major pieces that were missing. Starting with the most noticeable one, it didn't have any wheels or tires, so we needed to get wheels and tires on there. Now, I was initially going to go with an axial set of 4.75 inch BFG all-terrains, which the spare tire that was on it was, and then I would only have needed 4. I picked up a set of those, but one of the comments in the last video on this kind of hit home, and that was kind of one of those comments saying, you know, like, that truck is too nice, don't just get it done, don't just put things in there that are, you know, things to get it complete. And I guess that kind of did. I stepped back, took that into account, and then reevaluated my plans. So I decided not to use those tires. Not that they're bad tires. Like I explained before, I thought that they worked fine, especially for an RTR tire. But instead, I actually had these 4.19 inch Proline KM3s and kind of sat them next to it, and I thought they looked pretty good. They're a much smaller tire than that was on it before, but they just fit this truck pretty well. They clear everything and they fill the fender well. They actually, you know, they clear everything perfectly throughout the actual suspension travel. So I think that that's about as good of a fit as we could use. Now I took those KM3s and first of all, I filled those with some Crawler Innovations foams. I went to my local hobby shop and they actually had a couple of sets of Crawler Innovation Little Novas in stock on the shelf. So I picked those up. These are the comp cut inners and then they're medium outers, both front and rear, went with the same thing. They're made for a 4.25 inch tall tire, which is pretty close to what we have. And then I actually removed the outer tuning ring that was on those foams out of the package. I don't feel like I needed those. These fill the tire nicely and the tread pattern seems to conform well. I think that it's going to be a really, really good foam for this setup. And while I was at RC Country, I also picked up a spare tire. RC Country has a ton of inventory. I called, I said, hey, do you have 419 KM3s on the wall? They said, yep. So I went in there and I was gonna pick them up and I was like, I only need one actually in the spare. And like, oh, well, we'll just cut it open and sell you one at half price. Done. So I only had to buy one tire, which is a bonus. Worked out well. Not that I couldn't have used both and then used a spare later, but I just got it. So only had to spend like 15 bucks for a spare. Pretty good deal. And then those tires and wheels we fitted onto a set of new Vanquish Method 105s in red with a black ring. Nice truck, needed nice wheels. Now I know Brandon, my coworker, has pointed this out to me before, with a, you know, weathered truck look and then having like brand new shiny wheels, it's like doesn't always make 100% sense. But go drive this thing on the trail a couple times, the wheels will get dirty, you'll be fine. So worked out well. One other thing that I did is that these front wheels, there is some optional brass inner clamp rings that you can get for the VP wheels. They've been gone for a while, but they're actually coming back. And I had a couple of the 950 width, which is what these Method 105s use. The Method 105 is the only Vanquish wheel that uses the wider clamp ring. So that's what ended up in the front only here. Gives it a little front weight bias. People like that as a feature as far as using, you know, some of those parts like that. So it seemed like the right application for it to me. Now, as far as the front axle goes, I didn't really touch much of it. I didn't end up painting the knuckles. I figured I'd just end up leaving that, not a huge deal. And then the shocks. So the shocks weren't mounted up. They were included, but not mounted. One thing is though, is that they didn't come with the upper pivot ball that goes in the top of the Incision shocks. And that pivot ball isn't just like a normal pivot ball or a plastic pivot ball. It's kind of a special shape. It's about a 5.5 millimeter outside diameter to it. and most things aren't just gonna fit that. And I don't like doing like the fuel tubing route. So one thing that I like to do is if you have a set or you wanna pick up a set of the Vanquish brass pivot balls, then what I do is I take that, I put it on a screw and I put it in the chuck of my drill and just kind of wedge it in there as best I can. I use a flathead screw, so the taper end, I can help kind of tap it in, just wedges everything in place. And then I take a file and I just run the drill and I hold the file on there and kind of shape it to take the outside diameter down from the typical pivot ball diameter down to the 5.5 millimeter. Then I'll take and just hit it with like a nice easy or finer file just to make sure it's nice and polished, not too rough. And then I use that as my new pivot ball. I've done that for incision shocks like we just did here, and I've done it for a bunch of other shocks in the past, specifically because I don't like using the fuel tubing method. So I always like to try and use some sort of actual pivot ball design, and just a lot of shocks that aren't specifically made for crawlers don't always have that. So I've made these a ton of times in the past, and it's a really handy, easy thing to do. Probably take you 5 or 10 minutes to do the whole truck. So there you go. Now, like we discussed in the first video, I did not want to touch the patina, this raw steel bumpers, sliders, roll bar. I was gonna leave it in the, little bit of rust, surface here, kind of some polished edges where it's been handled a lot. Nothing major, but I decided I wanted to leave it. I think it kind of goes with the whole look. But once you get the body off of this, the actual sliders on the inside, big flat areas of sheet metal steel. And that area had obviously been wet before, and just a lot of rust on the top there. Just surface rust, nothing like, damaging really. But that's gonna be where you're mounting your electronics and things like that. And I don't like that. You're just gonna stick double-sided tape onto it. I didn't like that part of it. So what I decided to do is I took a little bit of time and sanded that surface rust down to get that off there, give me a nice clean surface. And then I masked off all of the visible stuff from the outside. So like you can see here, the sliders still have the same look as before, both from the outside and from the bottom. However, the inside, underneath of the truck body, I've actually got just a nice primered black surface there. So it's not going to turn into that same rusty situation. I think it looks a lot better when you take the body off now, as far as that goes. The wiring in general was just kind of loose in there because receivers got pulled, ESCs got pulled, motor was gone. I did spend a little bit of time rerouting everything, getting it zip tied in place, getting it a little bit centralized for when the actual receiver, ESC, all that is installed. We'll get to some of the other electronics in a second, but I did pick up a steering servo for this because it didn't have one, and I picked up a Reefs RC, I believe it's the 422 HD servo. Reasonably priced servo with decent specs. So threw that in this truck, and a Vanquish 25 tooth, 20 millimeter long servo horn. And then kind of working our way towards the center and underneath, the truck didn't have a transmission when it showed up. So I needed to put a transmission together. I pulled out a transmission from one of the previous flip vehicles, and it was just a standard axial 3-gear transmission. And I was gonna just put that in, but kind of taking that same approach as what we discussed earlier with the wheels, I decided to put together a little bit nicer transmission. So I picked up a Vanquish Red 3-gear aluminum transmission housing and a Vanquish motor plate and gear guard setup. I picked red for the housing just because I feel like I went with the wheels and the color of the truck, and I thought that it would look pretty good underneath it there. So I used that. I swapped in the metal gears from the previous transmission, re-greased everything because it had some of like the most foul smelling grease in it that I've ever seen in a vehicle. I've never had grease that just was rank. So just one more thing out of that truck that was just like, woof. So didn't want to put that back in here. Got it all built up. It's nice and smooth. Everything is good now. So that's a good fit inside of this. Drive shafts came with the truck, but they were made for the SCX kit version of the transmission, so the lengths were a little bit, had to do just a little bit of modification to get everything bolted up. To mount that transmission in, we did have to put a skid plate in it. Previously, it had the SCX 10.2 kit version skid plate in there, which just has 2 mounting holes and a little bit different shape in general. So I needed to swap in a skid plate. So I used a Vanquish VS410 skid plate for the 3-gear style transmission, dropped that in, and that allowed me to bolt in our new transmission. As far as everything else, I didn't really put any other parts in or tear anything else down. Everything just spins, rides smooth, it's in good shape. Overall, this truck is just, it's pretty much ready to go, I think. The only thing that I did do is while I had everything apart and painting it, cleaning things up, I did notice that there was some of the Night Customs parts that had some cracked areas here and there. So I did take the chance to go through and just reinforce some of those areas with some shoe goo, just to make sure that things didn't get out of hand and break further or anything like that. Just a little bit of shoe goo, flexible, and will hold things in place where they need to be. The one thing that I didn't replace was the actual driver head. The passenger head's a like very nicely detailed and painted figurehead. And I mean, all I would have had was like a very basic axial, black molded driver head, and that didn't feel right, but I just left it out. And I was talking about the motor and ESC. I did not put a motor and ESC in this vehicle. I went back and forth with some options. I picked up a Hobbywing 1080 brushed ESC, which is a nice brushed ESC, and actually wouldn't be a terrible fit in this vehicle, just because with the super detailed Night Customs engine bay, grill, bed, all of that, like, yeah, I wouldn't want to just like throw a big brushless in this thing and go crazy. There's a lot of value in 3D printed parts in this thing, and they're not the most durable thing in the world. So being a little bit of careful is a reasonable thing to expect out of someone. And then I was just going to throw in another one of those Holmes Hobbies motors, which are just solid $25 sealed can motors. And that easily could have been just a setup in here that would be fine for this truck. Work well, be reliable, you'll get a lot of time out of it. But I think that this truck is going to be a truck that it does have a high value. There's a lot of nice stuff here. Matt did a really good job. There's a lot of value in Night Customs parts. The axles are all Vanquish Curry. Now it has nice wheels and proper foams, great tires. It's just almost everything here is kind of done. It's got a built transmission in it. Like, it's a good truck. It's a high-end truck. It's got a lot of things about it. So I think whoever it goes to could have some of their own expectations for the quality of the motor and ESC, and rather than add the value and then having to try and get that back out at buying at retail value and then probably not increasing the value the same, I left it out. If it turned out to be a situation where the truck wasn't selling because of that, then it's something I could easily add, something that I easily have already. By the number of messages I got about this truck, I have no concerns about being able to sell this. And that brings us around to that part of the conversation about this truck. Like I said, I got a ton of messages about this truck. A ton of people wanted this truck. I understand, we all get it. You like Matt's trucks better than mine, whatever. It is a good looking truck. I will give him that. But getting to the information about this truck moving on to its next home, what I'm going to do is first, before I offer this thing for sale, I am going to browse and try and find some vehicles that I'm interested in trading for first, using this as my bargaining chip. And then if I can't make that happen, then it's going to go for sale. And that is because in the end, I'm here for RC cars. I'm not here to try and just, make money on this series or this project and then, get something else. I want RC cars. So if I can find a really cool truck that I can trade this one for, in some situation, I'm gonna do that because I like RC trucks. That's why I do this. If I can't make a deal happen, then what I'll do is I'll post up most likely on my Instagram or Facebook and let you guys know that I'll be posting this vehicle on my website, harleydesigns.com. I've got a for sale section in there with build breakdowns, what I currently have for sale, the whole deal. That is where this will be posted when it goes for sale. If I find a trade that I like though, it's probably not gonna have a dollar value put on it to be available for just a cash purchase. Sorry, but at the same time, I'm looking for cool trucks. And the reason that I'm going that route is because I have a feeling that whatever truck replaces this one could be the truck that I want to keep. Therefore, we'll have to restart the Flip That Truck series and start over for season 2. I've really enjoyed this series overall. Just being able to, not have to go through the full build, pick something up, maybe make a few changes here or there, see how people tackled problems or issues, or what decisions people thought were good ones, or how in the world people come up with license plates that say cilantro. This one is a series that I fully plan on continuing and just going through over and over, hopefully faster than this one was. You guys will have to let me know what you think about the choices that I made for completing this truck. If I should have gone super cheap, if I should have gone with a super nice motor ESC, or leaving the stuff out was good but putting on nice wheels and tires. Lots of decisions had to get made with this one just because of what was missing when it got here. But the plaque underneath definitely stayed. Hopefully whoever buys it understands the joke. You can only imagine wherever this truck ends up in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, who knows, and someone who gets it sees that plaque on the bottom who doesn't know that, oh, it's these two guys who live 3,000 miles apart who make fun of each other on the internet. It's with that real witty banter like Josh Smells. But that's gonna do it for what I assume is the final update on the Flip That Turk, and we're gonna move this one on. Hopefully we have a new replacement in the shop before long. But regardless, I have a ton of other projects that need plenty of attention, so there's gonna be no shortage of things to work on. So as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks again. Hit the like button if you enjoyed these videos. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.